The Analytics Rebel Alliance is counting on you. Like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, turn on that alarm bell so you don't miss any future edition.
So welcome to the Data Weekender 5th edition, and today it's a free event and it's organized by various professionals from around Europe. My name is Pragati, and those who don't know me, I'm a data platform MVP and I'm currently residing in London, UK. We have 50 talks across 6 tracks for you today, including 10 lightning talks. Speakers are presenting to you from around the world on a variety of topics, and today I'm accompanied by Kai, and he's helping me in moderating this track. Everyone involved in today's event have been working on it in their own free time, so we would like to thank everyone who has really helped us to bring this event together for you. You can find links to each track in your emails or on the website, and during the day we'll also put slides up in between sessions so that you know which session is next in the track. But as we know, this is the last session on the track, so yeah. If you have any questions for the organizers or for the speakers, please use the chat during the session and one of the moderators will respond or put your questions to the speaker. We hope everyone have an enjoyable event. With that in mind, we also expect everyone to follow our code of conduct during today's event. Whilst today is entirely free, in return for all the amazing content you will see, we would like to ask that you consider donating to our GoFundMe page, which is raising money for Voices of Children. It's a charity that supports children affected by the war in Ukraine. You'll find a QR code right on the slide that's just displayed in front of you, and me and Kai will also pop in the link directly in the chat window. On behalf of everyone at Data Weekender, we hope you enjoy today's event, and remember to use the hashtag Data Weekender if talking about the event on social media. So thanks everyone and welcome to this session. And this is the last session on the track, but yeah, everyone who has joined the track is really excited for Chris' session. So Chris, over to you. I know you can introduce yourself in a much better way I can, so I'll just give the stage to you. So yeah, take the stage.
Well, thank you so very much. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to dive right into this. Because today I'm going to be talking about a subject and a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I am super passionate about it. I think this is critical to the future of data and analytics inside of our organizations, and that is citizen data engineering, okay? And I've kind of put together a guide of what does it mean to become a citizen data engineer, and how do you go from where you are today with, maybe you don't know anything about data engineering, right? And you want to start that journey, and you want to, not just, do a little bit, but you want to dabble, and you think you want to make a career in data engineering, or maybe you just have some real short-term needs and goals. Well, that's what we're going to be getting into today, and I am super excited about this. All right, thank you for the I'm off of camera. I'm on.
No, I can see okay. You, Chris. Yeah, there.
All right, good. All right, let's get going. All right. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Chris Wagner. I've got an MBA. I'm a Microsoft Data Platform MVP. The Analytics Rebel. I'm the OG Data God, Power BI boss, and I'm the white rabbit in the industry. I work and I go from all through the entire stack of data and analytics, from deep hardcore big data all the way to front end consumption. I'm the senior finance data analytics solution architect for Rockwell Automation. I'm a founder of Kratos BI, the home of the data gods. Please follow me on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and check out my blog posts and content that's out on kratosbi.com. I'm always trying to connect people with the other people in the industry that know how to do all this great stuff, as well as educate people on things, because I think we do more together. We're better together. We're better working together. And that's why I want to help people make these connections. So connect with me and I'll help you connect with other people. All right. Data engineering is, so we can kind of lock in on what data engineering is. I want to talk about what Gartner's definition is of this. It's the practice of making the appropriate data accessible and available to various data consumers, including data scientists, analysts, business analysts, and business users, right? Gartner also went on to say that data engineering is going to be one of the future's biggest, brightest new jobs that's out there. It's going to crush data science. I know that seems real weird for anyone who's in data science. You watch all the TV commercials, all the stuff out there saying, hey, data science, data science. They're like, hang on. Data science is great, but if we can't get the data to there and we can't have the right context and we can't have the right information, data scientists don't have a lot to work with, right? The stuff that they can do and the insights they can provide have middling results if we can't get good data to them. And the abilities that data scientists have today are being democratized and made available to people that aren't even just data scientists, right? Like, if you're a data engineer, the ability to call in APIs that do really advanced data science things is becoming easier and easier for you to do, all right? Gartner went on to say that the best source for new data engineers is within our business. People who innately understand the data and innately can look at it and go, you know what? That's garbage. Or, yep, okay, that looks like it's right. That is something that, you can do all the technology schooling in the world and you can know all of the stuff. You can know Python, you can know advanced modeling techniques, you can know all of that stuff. But if you don't know what's going on in the business, it takes a long time to understand and refine and refactor your pipelines and the loads that you have, right? Conversely, if you're in the business, right, and if you're just wanting to get started in this area and you understand data, it is much easier to get started working and doing some of these small things inside of data engineering so that you can start to deliver value to your organization, okay? And I'm going to be outlining today how you, if you do some work inside of Power BI, can start that journey from like an analyst or working in Power BI all the way into data engineering and understand, hey, this is going to be a career for me. I want to do this. I want to get more into this. Or wait a minute, this is too much for me, right? And that's also super helpful, okay? And I forgot my next thing. Yes. This is something that, not only do we need to be building out in ourselves, but we need to be building this out in our organizations. If our organizations are going to be able to compete, move along, and be able to deliver the data and analytics that's necessary in our companies, we need to be building out citizen data engineering programs so that we're cultivating these ideas, we're cultivating these concepts. With that said, this is something that people don't do traditionally. I want you, if you have questions or items, make sure you put those in the chat so Praggy will jump in. She'll interrupt me because, as you can see, I go really, really fast on some of the stuff. So I want you to make sure that you're making sure that you understand what's going on. All right, and as we move forward, I'm gonna talk about this many times because this is going to get really, really complex, right? No matter what you do, data gets super, super complex. You need to, at every moment, every time you're in any place, you need to look for ways you can simplify, okay? So hold on. Before you go too far, always think, can I simplify this? Can I make this any easier, okay? Now, let's talk about the basics. All right, when it comes to the basics of data engineering, we are really, the key principles that we started talking about 50 years ago apply today. Garbage that goes in is gonna produce garbage out. No shortcuts, no machine learning, no cleanse. I mean, you could kind of cleanse to address garbage, but like, still it's garbage with a like lipstick smeared on it, okay? So you have to make sure that what you pull in is as high of a quality as possible, okay? So that's what we talk about sourcing. This is everything where you're going to be going to get data from. That could be Excel spreadsheets, that could be CSVs, JSONs, that could be databases, it can be whatever it is, right? That is your source information that you're going to pull your content through. Then we start to get into the concept of ETL, extract, transform, and load. Do not listen to anyone who says that, oh, well, we're doing ELT. That's a fallacy. Anything that does not end with load does not work, right? That means that data doesn't exist any place. It's always loaded someplace at the end state, even if that's just memory, okay? So the extract phase of this is how you connect to that source information, extract it out, right? So you can start to bring it into your environment. Then you can start to mash it together, do transformations, go from whatever the source system had that data look like into something that's meaningful and usable for your organization. How you can then you then load that into whatever your target is, so that you can then start to use it and make sense of it. And well, then ultimately you want to then distribute it. Okay. Any data that doesn't find its way into a consumption layer is not providing value. Okay. Unless it's used as part of like the calculation or does something on the end state. This is a big thing that we have to remember as data engineers, right? If we just bring data to a load state and this loaded state is of no use to anyone, right? Like they have to do these horrible transformations, or they have to really mangle it all up and apply crazy transformations to it, or before it's useful, and they haven't done that. We have not finished the job when it comes to data engineering, and that's why citizen data engineering is super important, because either often your source information, or worse, the information that the enterprise prepares, and maybe not worse, maybe predictably, the information that enterprise prepares and shares to analysts, people in your organization, isn't in a format that's useful. Well, we need it to be useful, right? And that's where citizen data engineering really comes in, especially because most citizen data engineers are on that share, that consume side. They know what that means to be shared in a meaningful way, right? So hopefully this, and that's where business intelligence also plays a huge key piece of it. All right. So I hope that, kind of makes some sense. All right. When we're talking about data storage here though, really there's kind of, three different ways that we start to think about how we manage our data and how we work with data. Okay. So classically we've managed everything inside of databases. That allowed us for relational integrity, all sorts of functionality, compute, storage, and those work really good. Databases bring together the two things that we need as analysts and people need, which is the ability to have compute, which is processing power, as well as store data in a format that's meaningful, right? One of the big things that the cloud brings us, and this is truly the big thing that's transformative and that is a little different, and then we have to remember this, is we now have the ability to separate out our storage from our compute, right? So a database has all those all brought together. The cloud allows us to break that out, where we could save things in CSVs, or we could save things in files and have a whole mess of it. And then we can bring in compute as we need to have that. Okay. And then we've even extended that into the whole Delta Lakehouse structure, so that, as you start to dig more into working in data engineering, you'll start to get into some of the complexities that come with it. Because you'll start to deal with Parquet files and Lakehouse files, and updating and inserting. Can be a challenge in the CSV world, where it's not as much of a challenge in the Delta Lake. For citizen data engineering, though, we're going to be keeping this easy. We're going to be sticking with CSV files that are managed by the service. So I don't want you to get too terribly concerned about either the database or the getting into the whole Lakehouse today as part of the citizen engineering program. Because remember, we are going to keep this easy, right? This is not going to be a hard thing for you to engage with. We want you to go from, hey, I want to do citizen data engineering, to I'm doing citizen data engineering. And I'm going to be showing you how to do exactly that. All right. Quick though, touch on a whole bunch of tools that exist inside of the data engineering space. Now, when we talk about orchestration, oh my gosh, all my slides are out of order. Okay, whatever. When we talk about citizen data engineering, when we're talking about orchestration or management, what runs where, when it runs, super easy. We have Power BI data sets and like live data feeds. When you go into like the full scale data engineering space, that's when you start to get into Data Factory and Azure Functions to get that up and running. When it comes to transformations, inside of the data engineering world, we're talking Databricks, Sparks, Kafka, Python, all sorts of things that you can start to get into when it comes to how you manage your transformations, how you get that up and running. System data engineering, keeping it easy. We're talking we're talking Dataflows, which runs on Power Query, or Team M, if you're familiar, that Power Query runs on M language. When we talk storage and the a data engineer, they have to know how to manage all sorts of different types of storage, from Synapse to Data Lake to Delta Lake to Cosmos to SQL to, you kind of name it. A data engineer is going to have to be able to work with any of those things that are out there. System data engineer, what's our core principle? We keep it simple, right? Storage is managed inside of Dataflows. Make it real easy for us to get up and work with that. Now, when we talk about sharing, and sharing, our data engineers, they got to get into like Key Vault and ADF, and then they've got all sorts of different like linking and secure linking, and there's all sorts of great KPIs or API functionalities and API stores that they work on managing. System data engineer keeps it simple. We use Dataflows for that. All right. And then when we talk about lifecycle management, i.e., how do you move your code from dev to QA to prod to make sure that the stuff you have is going to work, it's going to be it's functional and all that good stuff. Well, data engineers, you have a whole slew of tools that you have to learn and work with and learn how to manage. System data engineer, we keep it simple. We've got our Power BI deployment pipelines, and we're good to go. All right. Now, a basic concept that we have in data management is the concept of bronze, silver, and gold data. Okay. Bronze data is the raw landed data that came from wherever the source system is. Okay. So think of, if you have SAP and, you've got all these files that dump out of it, or you've got CRM data that's being dumped out, and it's just whatever the application managed that data in, it's just raw and it's vomited in. Okay. Silver layer is our transform layer, which is the dimensionally modeled. These are fact tables. These are dimensional tables. This is primarily a big place that you'll be using when it comes to building out your models for in Power BI. Is you really want to be focusing on this silver layer. And then that gold layer, this is your presentation layer, where the data has been highly aggregated, business rules are applied to it. This is the type of layer that you would use for your paginated reports, where you need to do real detailed data that needed to be like at the line level calculated out. This is also where you'd have like APIs hit for different users to consume. We're going to keep this very easy, right? We're going to be focusing in on like the bronze and the silver for the scope of what we would do for the citizen data engineering thing. Might do a little bit you might touch on or talk about the gold, but for the most part, again, we keep this simple. We don't get too deep into this. I just want people to be aware that these are the concepts. All right. Now, when we talk data management lifecycle, we are talking about how do we make sure that the stuff that's being consumed by people, right, is good, it's accurate, it's what we want it to be, right? We don't want to just dump code into production without it working and potentially being wrong, right? But we want to do it that's super easy for you to manage, work with, and this is why it's really important to start looking at using development pipelines to help you manage that. Again, this is something that's super easy to use in the service. That I'm going to be doing an end-to-end example of how you can use this. Okay. Now, there's a whole bunch of other core subjects out there. We're going to be briefly touching on a whole bunch of these items as we go. This is something that you should pick up as you need. Not, don't think, I've got to learn all of these different aspects. I've got to do all of these different things to get started in system data engineering. That's not true. There's just a whole bunch of things that are out there that you're going to slowly start to pick up different pieces as they're relevant to you. Not necessarily like because Chris said I got to do these things. That Chris guy knows about him, right? All right. And the whole purpose, though, the big purpose and the big picture for this is that we want to be able to be agile, be able to quickly define things that we as analysts or as someone in a business can go and take and move and start to make this available to people to start to serve that need to the enterprise. And then once we're talking about it's starting to get adoption, we want to talk about how do you upgrade that from your data flows to something that's truly enterprise supportable, scalable, and usable by your users and inside your organization. Key to this, though, is that the toolings that we're using and we're developing in Power Query are the same tools and capabilities that exist inside of Synapse. And we're going to see much more of that actually expand. If you don't follow Alex Dupler and Now About to Sell, make sure you do on Twitter. I'm sorry, Alex Powers, Alex Dupler. They do a YouTube series, but Alex Powers, Now About to Sell on YouTube. He is Power Query everything. So we're going to see that all over the entire Azure Synapse landscape. As we do these things, as we start to share and we become more of a data engineer, do not lose sight of your roots. Do not lose sight of that end product that is being consumed. Again, that's why citizen data engineers are so important, is you almost never lose sight of that, right? Or it's very easy for you to remember, at the very least, remember oh yeah, we have to think about what that consumption pattern is like for any piece of work you're doing. All right. So the big thing we want to make sure that we're doing when we do citizen data engineering, want to make sure that the quality is there, that this is what's going to be appropriate for people to work with, and that we've got it's being delivered and consumed by people. All right. Now, I'm about to go into a presentation. Pragya, are there any questions before I jump into this?
Chris, one quick thing. I'm not sure if that's really a question, but yeah, someone just asked, do you think DevOps guys are data engineers?
I think anyone today can become a data engineer. Just in the same way, if you're reading effective data storytelling, it talks about everyone being an analyst. I think everyone has the potential to be a data engineer. I think DevOps is something that has been traditionally an application-based, primarily an application-based a tooling that's now starting to bleed and work its way into data and analytics because of new modern cloud tools like we're about to see a demo on. But it's much harder to do DevOps in the data and analytics space than it does to do in an application space, because we're talking about the sheer physical and physics limitations on the masses of data versus the amount of code you have, right? Like data wise, which is state dependent, you can have 20, 30 terabytes of data that when you run, it just changes and makes, broad, adjustments, additions, removals, all of that good stuff. Whereas in code, I don't think I've ever heard of anyone having 40 terabytes of code, right? Like Google doesn't have 40 terabytes of code, right? Like it's a very different mindset when you start to break these things apart. So that's why we need to see more data or DevOps engineers in the data and analytics space, because that's an area where there's a lot more that we need to be able to do. Fortunately, there's tools out there that can help us with that. So, especially with the concepts of data engineering inside of this portal, and actually maybe find people who are like, I tried citizen data engineering and I kind of liked it, but I really love the DevOps side. Great. Now we have more DevOps engineers. All right. Any other questions?
Not yet, Chris.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. This is we're gonna out of this guy. Oh, escape out of this one. All right, we're gonna get into this right now. So we want to become a citizen data engineer, right? Right. Okay. So how do you get started down this path? Now, the best way is to take a report that you've built out there that is well loved and it's available in your organization, and like people are like, this is incredible. I want to be able to build more on top of this, or you've got some dimensions, fact tables, and content out there that I want to be able to use. I want to be able to make sure that this is part of my environment. You want to share that, right? Maybe you don't want to share everything, but you want to share components of it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with a Power BI report as it is. Remembering that it's the end state that we want to start with in mind, right? So the end state of what I want to deliver should produce a data model. Like all these data flows that I'm going to be creating should end up being able to create a data model that can produce these exact same metrics and these exact same visuals and have a high degree of quality as part of that processing. Okay, so good news, because we're using integrated solutions and tools that use the same code bases, I have almost all of the code right here that I need to build out a model. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to be building out my test checks. Okay, so my test checks are going to make it very easy for me to compare what's in my existing model to what I'm producing on my Dataflows side. Okay, so I've got all my big measures that are most important. I've got all of my visuals all brought in, so I can have my two big key measures, which are always counts, number of orders, and amounts, sales amounts, broken out by each of my dimensions. So I've got customer, I've got currency, customer, date, right? You can see it checking by on the side here. Date, product, promotion, and sales territory. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to insert and I'm going to go home. I'm going to hit transform data. Inside of here, I've got all of the code necessary to build this out. Okay. So I've got this all put together. I've got my fact internet sales. I'm going to go and I'm going to hit advanced editor and I'm going to copy this out. And then I'm going to open up my trusty Notepad++. If you're not using Notepad++, well, I should probably do an ad for Notepad++ too, because that's a thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to quick run through all of these dimensions I have, and I'm going to copy all of my M code out, and I'm going to paste it into a Notepad environment. I'm also going to make sure that I've added in the table name, right, by copy and paste. And the reason this is important is because I want to make sure that all my downstream measures and in my new model that I'm going to create is all going to match up exactly, right? Because at the end of the day, once I have all these data flows created and available, I don't want to use this report with the data set in it, right? I don't want to have duplicated things. I don't want to manage a whole bunch of reports. I don't want to manage 50, 60 refreshes when I only have to manage 5, right? Or 6. How many I got? 2, 4, 6, 7. Okay, so I've done that. I've collected all this information, right? I am good to go here, right? And so I'm going to skip over that part. Now, I've got my trusty notepad right here, right? And now I am going to go into my Power BI environment. Oh, we're gonna get a little crazy here. All right, I am going to go and I'm going to create a new workspace because these are going to be my weekender data flows. Right, I'm going to hit that. I'm going to create it. I am going to make sure that I'm using a premium per user license. And I know some of you don't use this. What I'm doing today, for the most part, can be done without premium per user. But I've mentioned this in the chat and comments before. We are now at the point where the features on premium per user make it basically a must-have for everyone. Honestly, I put forward the proposal that Microsoft should just raise the price to $20 a user. on Power BI so that everyone can have this functionality and just call it a day, get over the whole like, oh, we've got all these different tiers. No, everyone needs this functionality and capabilities. Just make it a price increase and get over with it. But they haven't done that yet. You should be planning for this though, okay? You're going to see this functionality here is worth every single penny of it to your organization and will pay for itself within days of implementing it if you're using this at any degree of scale. So think about that. It's super important, okay? Once I've created my environment out here, I'm going to go to new. I'm going to go to Dataflow. I'm going to copy my guy here. I'm going to add new tables, and the big thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to blank query, hit that guy, replace this, paste that in, and I'm going to choose my gateway. And this is the on-premise gateway because everything I'm running is on my local workspace station. I'm going to go to next. It's going to ask me to pop in a name here. I'm going to need to authenticate this. Come on, authenticate. Come on, baby, light my fire. Fire, fire. Yep. Yep, local host, advanced options. Okay. Oh, configure connection. Organizational account, sign in. Connect. I got another pop-up over here. Connect. Factor internet sales. Bladao. Save and close.
Chris?
Yeah.
Is it possible to make the Power BI browser screen a little bigger? Because I think it's hard to see.
Oh, okay.
It's
I can
quite
do
small for us. Yeah.
that. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, that's better. Thank you so
That's
much.
better? Okay.
Yeah.
So all that code you saw is just going to be off screen for me. So I've got that. I'm going to paste that in. We're just going to hit save on this guy. And big thing's going to pop up. Refresh now. Always hit that refresh now. If you miss it, you have to make sure that you go back in and refresh it. People miss this stuff all the time. It's like the biggest thing that ends up getting missed. You go in and make sure that that gets done, right? So once that's in place, I go back in here and I also make sure that I go to settings and I schedule a refresh. I want it to be kept in place. I want to add a time. I'm going to choose a time. I always like 6 a.m. Apply this. Oh, a.m. Apply. And you might have to make sure that your connections are valid there once you get that set up. But then once that's in place, you're good to go. As you do this, you're going to continue to run through adding in these new data flows following this exact same pattern, right? Add new tables. Go down to data flow, blank query. Paste it in. Choose your connection, enterprise, and next. Remember, I'm always going in and I'm making sure that I have the exact same name, that I make sure I configure my connection. Come on. I told you, configure my connection. Organizational account, sign in. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. Connect. Save and close. Fresh now. Okay. And this is a big deal. We want to make sure that your data flow and all of your table names are different or are the names of the tables that you're refreshing. Okay. The reason that we want to do this is because if I do a refresh on a flow, it's going to refresh all of the items that are in my flow. So it's entirely possible for you to create a singular flow that has all of these items in it. But it's going to end up causing you issues if you ever get into the point where you end up needing to do a single data refresh adjustment or addition. Like, okay, one of your data flows is causing you a problem. Well, you've got 45 or you've got 100 data flows in that pipeline, and then you've got an issue when it comes to resolving that configuration, right? Like resolving that load becomes a problem. Right. And because I do my builds and conversions like this, where I paste in my M code and then I paste in my my table name. All right. Well, let's say we ran through all of that stuff, and we got that done. We got this in place. Oh my gosh, I only have 30 minutes left. All right, we're gonna say that this is all done and in place. We'll hit cancel. We're gonna go back to our workspace. Okay. Now, one of the big things that we're gonna do once we've established these and we have these up and running is we're then going to create a pipeline so that we can manage these. Well, actually, first thing we're going to do is we're going to build out a report that balances these things out. Okay. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use this template that I have to help us with that. So we are going to make a connection in a separate report that connects out to the data flow, right? It's going to have two connections. All right. And we're going to go transform data. And we're going to see the first transformation is our fact validation. Okay. So what is it going to do? Is it's going to connect to the data flow that we just created, okay? So that the source of that, oh, I'm sorry. No, I apologize. Sorry, this
Chris,
is, yeah.
Chris, can we take a question because it seems to be relevant at this stage?
Sure, yeah, go for it.
So one question is like, what is the benefit of data flow versus doing it in the Power BI, PBIX dataset and letting users use the uploaded dataset as a source?
Fantastic question. Okay. We are going to get to that in just 1 minute. Okay. But yeah, well, let's pause. We'll get to that in just a second. Okay. I'm going to circle back to that. Okay? All right. So in my validation thing, because I want to do this before I share this with other people, right? I want to make sure that this stuff is right, and more importantly, it stays right. Okay. So I've got my, this is connected to my data flow, right? So I've actually configured it so that it's an import into a data flow. It navigates down to the data flow that I want to have, right? I'm not going to run through that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a query that goes back against my source system and pulls up and groups together the records necessary for what I'm looking at, right? So in this case, I browse the table, but then I put a group by function on the count of records by date, making sure that this goes back inside of my report. So I've got records, I've got order quantity, I've got it by date, I've got all the key measures that I need to have. I bring that into a table. So I bring these back into my new model, and then I build out measures that subtract the two measures from each other, right? So I create measures on top of each other, right? That basically, like I sum up my, the differences basically subtract the two, right? So that as we go through and we can look at and see if there's any differences inside of our data sets. And the reason for that is once we publish this out into the service, we're going to keep track of what's going on inside of here. And we're end up going to actually also add on top of my data flow validation report, we're going to add in a dashboard, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to manage alerts. And I'm going to set an alert rule to let me know if my values ever differ. Okay. So once I've published my fact table out and I know that, I'm running and I'm refreshing, I can ensure that it's always keeping in sync with that source system. Okay. So that I know that the quality of information that's out there is good and that we're never like missing a refresh or, we haven't had any other issues with the data that we're producing, right? Very important if we're going to be distributing it that we make sure that it's right, okay? Next thing we will do is we'll actually leverage Power BI goals. We'll throw a Power BI goal on top of each one of those to make sure that we keep our differences as 0. And then we can kind of track and see as we go along through time if there's been any historical variances. Like how often are you missing on something? Is it missing often? Is it only missing sometimes? All right. This is something that can also help you be able to ensure people when they come in and say, hey, a citizen, because you'll see like data engineers or like hardcore IT people come in and be like all like snooty or whatever. Like, oh, do you have data quality monitoring? Yep. Do you track and monitor it over time? Yep. Do you have alerts? Yep. I got all that stuff, right? So you've got that all set up and running and available within your workspace, making that accessible to, okay? And then what you're going to do once you've added those items in, you've made sure that you've built out all of these reports. And now notice I did skip over the build of the reports. I wanted to have time for that. We're going to create a pipeline for managing this content. So when we do a deployment, we can do a deployment and then we can roll it up. Well, you say, Chris, okay, you started here. What's your production going to be? Well, we're going to actually start from production in this case, okay? So we're going to create a pipeline, and we're going to call this Weekender Data Flow Pipeline. All right, I'm going to hit create. This, it's going to ask me, what is this? All right, is this, your development test or production environment? This is my production environment, so I'm going to assign it to this workspace. So now you can see that Weekender Data Flows has been made available here, right? Now, we can choose to select the workspace, or we can choose to, can we create one? Where'd it go? No. Assign workspace. Oh, come on. No. Why? Deploy to previous stage. Right there. It's going to, once you hit there and deploy to previous stage, it's going to take the content that was in production. It's going to end up deploying it backwards through the environment, and it'll end up creating a new workspace I can actually launch called my Data Weekender Data Flow Test workspace. Okay, so I can continue to do that, where I can publish to the previous stage. I can make sure that all those things are available. Okay. Now once this is good to go, actually, well, that's it. We'll hop into this workspace, my development workspace, and here is where we'll finish off our development, and we'll run through how we create those and get those new workspaces published up. All right, so we go to new, we go to data flow again. So we learned how to do this before, right? Hit add new tables, go to our blank. Hit next. Name here. Configure my connection. Sign in. Come on. Killing me here. Demo gods. All right. Well, so because we're going to pull an audible, because I only have part of this working, the 3 tables, I'm going to show you what we can do and how we can make this work. So what we're going to do is, now that we have testing and validation in place on these, right, we've got monitoring and alerting on them, we can say that, these data flows, they are certified data sets, certified data flows that people can use when it comes to building out their models. Okay. We're going to check them, and we're going to make them certified. Okay. These, because we have all the criteria in place on these, technically you'd want to make these promoted, and then you'd want to run them for a while before you'd certify them, but you kind of understand what I'm going at here. Now, I want to make sure that I validate out back to this guy. So I am a big fan of red versus blue, right? So I've got my red data set. Remember this from the beginning. And remember, we are always targeting end state, right? So I am going to hop into my blue state, and I'm going to add in my new model. So I'm going to go to get data Power BI Dataflows. And here is where we start to answer those questions, right? Now we start to have, in fact, this is actually going to really show it. Okay, so here's my weekender Dataflows. I want to add these guys in place. So I want to add my customer. I want to add my date, and I want to add my fact internet sales. Okay, I'm going to load these guys up. The nice thing about this, and this is a perfect example of it, maybe I only want to share a portion of this model to someone, right? Then I could just share those tables, or someone only wants to have a portion of the model that I've made available. Now, as a word of note, come on, apply changes. Models are shared at the workspace level. So today on the data flow, I'd be sharing everything that was in that one workspace with someone. And if I wanted to share it to another audience, I'd have to or had something that I wanted to be able to share. Some data flows with one audience and some data flows with another. I'd have to have different workspaces with data flows for that situation. But in this case, this is going to work fine for demo purposes. Okay. So I've got my my customer, my internet sales, and my date dimension together. Now I'm going to make sure that I've got my joins in place. And so my joins are on order date key is my primary join. So I start with that one. Then I do due date key because I've got alternate joins in this guy, and I've got ship date key. These are in place. I go to my model, and one of the things I did grab when I was doing all of that stuff is I went and I grabbed my measures. Now I'm going to grab all of these. I'm going to add these in as custom measures inside of here. So new measure. These in place. How many of you wish there was a way to like en masse add in new measures? Wouldn't that be nice? I'd love to be able to just dump these into like a folder someplace and just have those be available inside my model. You can kind of do it with Tabular Editor, but it's really not, it's not the same thing, right? So copy, sure. And the reason for doing this, again, we are wanting to make sure that what we are doing, everything that we've done inside this new data flow model is going to be producing the same results that I'd expect from my old historical model, right? Oopsies, I did not grab it. Total, right? And so we're gonna see this get tested out in just a second here. New measure, right? Because data engineering is more than just moving data to one place to another. It has to be consumable and usable, right? And so it's all about how are things joining up? Are they producing the same results as we'd expect? Now, in this case, because I have the exact same names in my tables, I have the exact same joins in my model. Like if I look here, right? And if I look here, and I focus in on just the dimensions that are there, dim customer, yep, dim customer, dim date, yep, dim date, right? Oh, and those are the two table sets, so those are all right. So now what I should be able to do in my red-blue testing, I don't even need to see any of that stuff. I should be able to see between these two environments. I can copy. I can paste this in place. Paste. Copy, paste. Copy. Paste. There we go. And I can quick do a spot check. Are all of these numbers the same? Yes, they are. They're good to go. Great. Now I can look at my dim customer table. One's my customer. This is the customer table. I can go copy. I can hit paste. And I can see that my numbers are all coming out the same here as they are here. And I can go to my fiscal year. I can paste this here. I can be assured that this is right. And if I had, we stuck around to figure out what was wrong with the other joins, I could validate those other joins that they're connecting and they're working as well. Okay. But this is a great example of how you could take and build out to make sure that this is up and running. But I don't want to stop there, right? Because I think full life cycle on these things. I want to make sure that what I'm doing is usable. So I want to make sure that I take this new model that I built in order to test this model. I want to take it and I want to go to external tools. I want to open Tabular Editor. Because what Tabular Editor is going to do is it's going to give me access to the source code that's out here, or that is inside of this workspace. So I can go and I can see I've got the tables that are here. I've got my my measures are all going to be inside of here, right? They're all together, right? I'm good to go here. Now I want to go to my model. I want to deploy this out. I want to paste that in place because this is going to go into my data sets workspace. I actually have that where my demo data sets workspace. I want to deploy it into this workspace for consumption. I hit next. It's going to ask me authenticate, and gosh dang it, I better authenticate. And I'm going to call this one my weekender data flow data set. I hit next on it. I deploy my model. I hit deploy. It's going to deploy the model out. Once this is done, come on now. I'm going to go out to my Power BI service. I'm going to refresh this page. I'm going to see that my weekender Dataflow datasets out there. I'm going to refresh it. It's going to run. And then what I'm going to do, I presume that gets done, is I'm going to take that other data set that I have. Remember, I built this data set off of a key report that was out there. And I know I tested these visuals, right? So these visuals and these measures are out there. I'm going to take this. I'm going to create a new report where I'm going to grab from my Power BI data sets. I'm going to select my weekender Dataflow data set. I'm going to hit create. I'm then going to, again, copy my KPIs. Okay, whatever. I'm going to then, come on now. Oh, it's connected live. Why are you? All right, I can, even though my fields are being weird, I can see that my measures are coming across. I can then also copy my visuals over. And now I can use this new report, once I added these other tables in, I can use this report to replace my old report that was using data flows and a model that was embedded inside of a report to now use certified data flows coming from a data set that I'll now go back in and certify. And then use that for my reporting and then make those data flows available to other people who want to come in and take advantage of and use. Oh, they gotta be like this. Well, other people who want to come in and start to take advantage of the different dimensions that I've published out there, so that we can refresh currency and customer a singular time. We can refresh our fact internet sales a singular time. We can, add in, and if you watch that incredible aggregated tables experience that's out there, I don't know if you could do that. No. Well, so you have an incremental table that you're loading. You can build out those incremental tables inside of Power BI or inside those data flows so that you can manage those loads and data flows, and so that they just get used by all of your your reports out there or all of your data sets that are out there, they can start to just leverage that, common data flow in order to provide that information into your analytics and reporting space. Okay. But at the end of the day, you end up with an environment. Come on now. Where'd you go? Matthew Roach. Went right by it, huh? Oh, he lost his picture. We've got our environment that's out there that's got monitoring in place on it. So I've got a dashboard where I can keep track of the quality of my data. I've got goals that track snapshots over time, so I can know that, how many times in the last year, not only did it fail, but how many times in the last year did I have values that didn't match the source, right? So I can really test and understand the quality of the data that I have out there. Then I can say, in the data I've taken and presented to people is accurate and is right. Now, this is a lot. I've showed you the complete end to end of what does it mean to be a citizen data engineer. If you're going to get started, start with one table. Create one table inside of your Power BI, data flow as a data flow. I would highly recommend starting with your date dimension, right? Your date dimension can be commonly used broadly across all of your teams, broadly across people, so that you can share that with them, and that they can learn how to get up and running with data flows, and that they can start to learn how to interact with them, how you can work with them, how you can do different things. Okay. Also, next steps. There's a whole bunch of courses that are out on the Microsoft Learn site. If you're not familiar with it, a quick Google out there will take you to it. One that I really like is Clean, Transform, and Load Data in Power BI. Remember, because we're talking about working with Power BI data flows, which are built on Power Query, which is built on the M language, you look for any trainings that are very specific to working with a Power Query will enhance your ability to work inside of this tool as well. Another great advantage of learning how to work with this tool is the more you learn how to work in Power Query, which is helpful in Power BI, which is helpful in Excel, it'll be helpful in data flows, it'll be helpful across this entire journey. So cleaning and transforming and loading data in Power BI, as well as automate data cleaning with Power Query. These are two great classes that are out on Microsoft Learn. Do check these out. And as I said, follow Alex Powers about Not About to Sell. He has some just fantastic content out there as well. And with that, we're going to be going on to what questions do you guys have for me?
So, Chris, I can see two questions right now. So the first question is, during building data flows, we looked at the data validation and alerts. So does the alerts work in case the factual data is changing for the same period?
Yeah.
Or as the facts, because the facts can move, right? So
right. So you manage that inside of your refresh of that report, right? So your data flow validation report, right? Like this guy on the settings on when you refresh it. On this guy on the settings, you can kind of choose the cadence in which you schedule your refresh on to run it, right? Like, and then that was off, but you turn it on, and let's say I refresh all my data flows at 6 a.m. I would add a step here to refresh this at 6:30 a.m. to make sure that if there were any discrepancies, we've made sure that these were up and available. All right.
Thank you. And then there's another one. So yeah, so this is more okay. I'll just read that out. So this comes from Rishi. The concept of this self-service is great, but do you find the fact that you can't see the data in the data view when you're connected to a model in live or direct query mode make it less usable by analysts in real life? Because you can't apply row level security at a data flow level.
Well, hang on, those are two separate questions, right?
Yeah. So they're like two things in the same thing. Yeah.
So yes and no. I mean, uh, the advantage here is that these are things that are available broadly inside of an organization to make them consumable. It's also the type of thing that you can actually pull in, and when you do that, when you build out a data flow, I mean, uh, this is me consuming a data flow, right? Yeah, right here. This is a data flow. So if I add a data flow in on my model, to build out a new model that is being consumed or to build out, I have the exact same experience as if I was building out anything inside of an organization. Now, when I'm sharing a data set to people who are building and consuming information, um, that's where we want to have controls around and have row level security that gets applied at the data set level. Because remember, we're talking about an authoring experience. Authors of a model never have row level security that are applied to them, right? They see the base information that has everything applied to it, and that they see everything, right? So that's why at the authoring layer of the model of building a model, you see everything. Whereas the authoring of a data set, or when you're authoring on top of a data set, like in this case, you don't. You just see the elements that are available inside there. And I'm having some weird bug where wow, I've never seen that happen before. You just see the elements inside your model and not the actual items themselves. And that's all for security purposes and RLS security, as kind of outlined inside that conversation, right? Um, yeah, and that's the difference between a data source that goes into a data flow, or I'm sorry, a data flow that goes into a model, right? That inherently needs to not have security applied to it, right? It's at that layer, that model layer where you apply the security on top of that. Okay. And that's again for the citizen data engineer that's out there. You need to go any further on that. You can start to individually explore and start to expand into other engineering capabilities, because when we talk about like tooling of data engineering, there's a whole bunch of capabilities. Um, you know, this is the citizen data engineer, is the idea of that is it should be a simple way to get working and start to engage and start to encounter these challenges that people start to understand as a data engineer. And then as you start to need to leverage other capabilities and look at, hey, I need to bring more compute with what I'm doing, right? Maybe I need to bring in more power for transformations. Well, that's when you start to expand and start to explore into these different areas. That's when you start to look at different capabilities when it comes to storage and access, and to meet these other different needs, right? The citizen data engineer space isn't designed to be like completely and totally like it does not have all the capabilities that you see over here. It just has parity on the capabilities that you have over here. Okay. I hope that makes sense to people.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, Chris. And the other thing is like, can you just repeat the benefit of data flows versus data sets?
Yeah. Again, the benefit of that, and I have two models up, right? So data set, you're working with oh gosh, dag nabbit. You're working with the data model. For whatever reason this isn't sharing it. You're working with a data model that's defined and it's available inside of the service, that you don't have any real control over the joins. The base level measures are put in place. Row level security is added to a data set, right? So people who are going in and working with the model, they've got that base model that's available to them, right? This would be much more your self-service business analyst would be engaging on this side, whereas a data engineer, someone who's a citizen data engineer who's coming in, a citizen data, I'm sorry, citizen data engineer provides these tables for an analyst or an analytics a citizen analytics engineer who's actually working on building out models, learning how to work with tabular models, and starting down that path towards that enterprise analytics engineer that exists in some organization, right? So two different build experiences, right? And really, when we think about security, and I wish I would have done this as a slide two, is it's all about who is your consumer, right? So you build a report for people who want to consume a report. You build a data set for people who want to build reports but don't want to build models, right? Because modeling is not super easy. It's hard for some people, right? In fact, it's hard for a lot of people, right? If you want to build a report that's on a model that's built and it's engineered and it's updated and you got controls in place on it and stuff like that, this is a fantastic thing for thousands of developers out there, right? And then if you want to build a model, right, that you then prepare for reports or you build your own reports on top of, these data flows allow teams of analysts or teams of people who are building models to share those in common, right? Like, let's say me and Rishi, we want to work on the same fact table, right? We want to have the same refresh cadence. But Rishi, you've got a whole bunch of other tables that you've added into your reports because you're doing some custom mashups. You've got a live data feed that you've added in there.
Yes, sir.
You've got all these things in place, and I have a whole different slew of tables I've added into my model. By having that one data flow that's out there, we ensure that that one data flow gets refreshed and it becomes available in both places. I hope that helps make sense. All right. Now, I think we're over time. I did want to thank each and every one of you guys for taking your time out of your day to come join me to sit down and go through all this stuff. This has just been absolutely fantastic. Pragiti K, everyone who was involved in Data Weekender, thank you guys for putting this together. This was just great. You guys are the best. Peace, you guys.